Hello, I'm Dr. Richard Jelusich. I'm the author of Eye of the Lotus, Psychology of the Chakras. For many, many years, since the early 90s, I wanted to know how it was that we even got to be here in these physical bodies. And so I centered on the chakra system, not just as centers of energy like fuel, but more like centers of consciousness. So as I did many, many spiritual consultations and a lot of scientific research as well, I found that these centers of consciousness actually affect the four archetypes of the whole human being: mental, physical, spiritual, emotional. Not only that, but in my research, I found that each chakra has one or more intuitive faculties that are on 24/7. So, to me, the chakras are never blocked or closed, they're always functioning. But in most of us, those intuitive faculties have not been cultivated, even though they're there. So I continued my research and I started to notice patterns in these chakras. Like one person might have a certain chakra, like say the heart chakra here, that might be more prominent than the others. Even though all are functioning, they may favor that one. It's very similar to being right or left-handed. There's nothing wrong with your non-dominant hand, but you may just favor the one that you use, like writing your name, and it just happens to be the way that you function. So, for instance, if the heart chakra were to be a little bit more dominant than the rest, even though they're all functioning and all your intuitive faculties are on, the heart chakra would cause you to be a little bit more empathic, a little bit more sensitive to the purity and to the emotions of others. So I started noticing this more and more in people that these chakras could be dominant. I developed a theory that most of us, in fact, I believe all of us, have one chakra that is more dominant than the others. In other words, influencing the way we perceive reality through these intuitive faculties that are a part of each one of our seven chakras. So then I codified this into the book. And the book, Eye of the Lotus, became a kind of a definition of the chakras that goes way beyond just what color, what musical keynote, what nervous plexus, and so forth, but more as to how they affect how you and I perceive reality. So if the heart chakra were green and we only saw things through a green lens, that is how we would tend to perceive reality, which would color our perspective for our life. So to me, one chakra is more dominant than the others, but also, as far as I can tell, for a lifetime. So when I wrote the book, I wrote it as a guide, not just about the chakras, but how I feel the chakras actually work as conduits of consciousness. So what is a conduit of consciousness? There's a lot of research going on today about what is called non-duality or non-locality. In my parlance, it means there are higher dimensions of reality, like the astral and causal dimensions, that are not limited to time or space, but still experience uniqueness. And justifiably, that's why a lot of us put on the brakes right there, because it doesn't make rational, linear sense, even though it would be more accurate to say that the astral and causal dimensions, which are beyond space and time, and the physical dimensions are actually two sides of the same coin, and that these chakras are active in all three of these levels of what is called the whole human being: mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional. So this became a fascinating writing where people would read this book and discover a lot more about themselves by looking at their characteristics of what each one of these chakras represents. So for instance, the throat chakra, you might be more telepathic, more wanting to know the meaning or the comprehension or the understanding of something. And the heart chakra would be more about the feeling. The third chakra, more about truth, uniqueness, and power. So this became an entire, I think it was 110,000 word book that has been used at different universities across the country as course material at the master's and Ph.D. level, so people could understand more about the truth of their spiritual nature. And granted, in notes from the author, I do say this is a book of my opinions, but there's nothing out there like this that I know of. So I became very enamored with continuing this study. I've written other books on the chakras as well that help to understand this idea of, as we understand and cultivate the consciousness in our chakras, we become more awakened. We become more aware. We start to see things more as they are than as we appear to be. So we start to trust the intuition and our rational mind in a very balanced and even manner. Then that way we start really getting into the full or the more full potential of living our lives. And the book has a huge appendix. Of course, like all new authors, this was my first book, and I put everything in it I could think of for exercises and different types of essential oils and yoga therapy and whatnot. So the publisher said, no, you have to make that an appendix. So the appendix is huge, but I'm really a big fan of self-empowerment and self-realization. So in this book are many, many tools that you can use to help gently and safely stimulate your chakras to awaken. Why do I say that? Because in most people, the chakras are dormant. It's not a bad word. It just means they have not been stimulated to awaken. But as a chakra awakens, you start to perceive the realities of these higher dimensions. It's what in the ancient Hindu Vedas were called the three yoga bodies, or the yoga, or the bodies of individuation. And you start to awaken in these higher levels, not in a unicorn and rainbow way, but rather in a spiritual awareness. And we're living in an age where it's important that we really grasp the truth of this nature. And with the information explosion and so much research now available on non-local studies, even a Nobel laureate speaking of our non-locality, it's time for us to really grasp what the chakras represent, how they affect our perception of reality, and the tools we can use to safely and gently awaken those chakras. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed my little introduction into the Eye of the Lotus, psychology of the chakras. And in future videos, I'll be talking about different aspects.